The galaxy was wide and full of voices. Among those voices, some words carried weight and silence at the same time. One of those words was the killing ground. Every warrior across the known worlds had heard of it. Some pretended they had not. Some spoke of it as a rumor. But all knew the truth. The killing ground was real, and no warrior who stepped upon it ever left alive. The world itself was not beautiful. From the distance of orbit it looked empty, a scarred planet with no oceans, no forests, and no cities. Yet the surface was not empty. It was filled with traps, machines, and beasts, all designed by ancient hands to test courage and skill. The history of the killing ground was lost in time, but its purpose was never forgotten. Warriors from many species had tried to claim victory there. Each time, the story ended with their failure. So it became a measure of courage. Armies would whisper about who might survive a step on that world. Heroes would speak loudly until the challenge was offered, then fall silent. The very idea of walking across that place made the strongest hearts tremble. When the council announced that the next challenger would be a human, the galaxy laughed. Humans were new to the stars. They were small in number and small in power compared to ancient empires. Many saw them as children wandering in places where only giants should walk. Some thought this choice was a joke, others thought it was a punishment, but no one thought it was possible for a human to last a moment in the killing ground. On the day of the trial, great ships circled the planet. They carried millions of watchers. Warriors, nobles, traders, and even scholars had come to witness what they believed would be a brief end. The arena of the planet opened, and the surface showed its scars under the burning light of a nearby star. A single figure stood at the edge. His name was Arun. He was not dressed like the champions of other species. He did not wear bright armor or carry massive weapons. He walked with a plain staff made of reinforced wood. His clothes were simple, his face calm, and his pace steady. He looked more like a traveler than a warrior, yet his steps never faltered. The crowd watching from above began to murmur. Some laughed, calling him foolish. Others shook their heads, pitying him. But no matter what was said, every eye was fixed on him as he stepped forward. The killing ground welcomed him with silence. No wind blew, no bird called, no shadow moved across the rocks. Only the distant hum of ancient machines whispered beneath the surface. Arun did not pause. He placed one foot after another with the same calm rhythm, as if walking down a quiet path at home. Warriors who had once entered the arena often began with roars and wild movements, trying to show courage. Arun gave nothing like that. His face was unreadable. His body carried no fear, no excitement. He walked as though the planet belonged to him. The silence in the arena grew heavy, and even the laughter of the watchers began to fade. The ground beneath his boots was cracked and dry. The soil had no life. Still, Arun's pace remained the same. He did not hurry, and he did not slow. His eyes scanned the land, measuring distance and shape. He was not ignoring the danger. He was reading it. From the orbiting ships, the alien council observed him closely. The council was made of leaders from many species, each wearing their symbols of power. They had seen countless warriors fall on this world. They had seen blood, fire, and despair. To them, this was simply another performance of the same end. Yet even they could not hide their unease as they watched the human. Arun's calmness was not natural in this place. The killing ground was made to break the mind before it broke the body. Fear was meant to crush the spirit before claws and blades could strike the flesh. That was why no warrior had survived. Yet here was one human, walking as if fear did not exist. One council member, an elder with scaled skin, spoke softly. He said that calmness was nothing against the machines waiting below. Another, a tall being of light, replied that calmness itself was already a weapon. They argued quietly, but none turned their eyes away from Arun. Below them, the human reached the first mark of the arena. This was the place where traps always began. Warriors of the past had tried to run, to leap, or to fight the ground itself. Arun did none of those things. He simply stopped, placed the staff lightly on the earth, and listened. The watchers held their breath. Time seemed to stretch. Nothing rose from the ground, nothing moved in the air. Only the human stood in the center of the ancient silence, eyes calm, waiting. It was then that many began to understand that something was different. They did not yet know what would happen, but they felt the weight of it. This was not another doomed warrior. This was not another failed trial. The first steps of Arun inside the arena had already shaken the crowd. They had expected a wild display or a desperate run, but what they saw instead was quiet and calm. The killing ground was known for feeding on fear, yet the human carried none on his face. That calmness now drew every gaze more tightly than any roar of courage ever could. From the high balconies of the ships above, voices filled the halls. Some alien nobles whispered that humans were strange, perhaps too simple to feel fear. Others laughed softly and said his calmness would last only until the first trap awakened. But there were a few who leaned forward with serious eyes, sensing something hidden in the man's silence. Arun moved deeper. The air was dry and heavy. The ground under his boots shifted with an odd vibration, as if machines slept beneath the soil and stirred at his weight. Each step he placed carefully, not in panic, not in caution, but with full awareness. His staff touched the earth at every pause, and his ears listened. He acted like a farmer measuring a field, not a warrior preparing for death. The crowd grew restless. They wanted action, something to prove their belief that a human could not survive. The arena was quiet, and that quiet was unsettling. The planet itself seemed to hesitate, as though the machines that had ended so many lives were unsure of what to do with this calm figure. Then the silence broke. The ground ahead shifted with a low rumble. Plates of metal pushed upward through the dust, forming a jagged line across his path. A sharp hiss echoed as the plates split open. From within them rose tall figures of steel, shaped like hunters. Their eyes burned red, their claws were long, and their bodies moved with mechanical precision. These were the first guardians of the killing ground, machines built to break the courage of any challenger. The watchers above leaned forward. They remembered the stage. Countless warriors had fallen at the hands of these metal hunters. Some had tried to fight head-on and been torn apart. Others had tried to flee and been chased down. None had ever passed this point. Arun stopped walking. His calm face turned toward the machines as they spread into a half circle. There were 6 of them, each clicking and shifting as they adjusted their weapons. The hunters waited for him to move, to panic, to choose a path. That was when their speed always overwhelmed their prey. But Arun did not run. He did not shout. He did not lift his staff in warning. He only watched them, his eyes moving from one to another, as if counting their rhythm. The first hunter leapt forward. Its claws flashed in the light, sharp enough to cut stone. The crowd gasped, waiting to see the human fall. Yet Arun moved in a way they had not expected. He stepped aside, calm and sure, his staff striking the hunter's arm at just the right angle. The force was not great, but the balance shifted. The machine stumbled, its claws striking the ground instead of the man. In one smooth motion, Arun guided its own weight into the dust. The watchers shouted in disbelief. No warrior had ever made the hunters fall so quickly. Arun did not even look proud of it. He only turned to face the next. 2 more machines came at once, claws swinging in perfect rhythm. Arun did not charge them. Instead, he stepped between them, letting their strikes cross paths. His staff struck a joint, turning their momentum against each other. The clash of steel against steel rang across the arena, and sparks filled the air. Both machines fell in a heap, their own strength their undoing. The silence that followed was heavier than the clash. Across the ships above, the laughter that had filled the halls was gone. Only the sound of breath and murmurs remained. Still, 3 hunters stood. They circled him with more care now, as though even their machines sensed the human was not prey. Arun's calm eyes followed them. His breathing never quickened, his steps never rushed. He moved like water flowing around stone. One charged low, another leapt high. The third rushed from behind. It was a pattern designed to trap him. But Arun did not fight them like an animal would. He moved with patience, stepping aside, guiding the low charge into the one that leapt high. The clash sent both sprawling. The last turned its claws toward him, but Arun's staff struck its leg with a sharp crack. The machine stumbled, and with a single turn of his body he drove the staff into its chest, sending it crashing to the earth. The arena fell quiet. Dust drifted across the broken machines. Arun stood still in the center, his chest rising and falling in calm rhythm. He was not untouched. The edge of his sleeve was torn, and a small line of blood marked his arm, but his stance was unshaken. From the council chamber, the leaders spoke in low tones. The scaled elder hissed that this was only the beginning, that stronger trials waited ahead. But the tall being of light replied that the beginning was enough to measure a spirit. If fear had not broken him yet, perhaps it never would. In the stands of the ships, whispers spread like wind. Some called it luck, others skill. Some began to argue that perhaps the machines had grown old, their strength faded by time. But no one could deny what they had seen with their own eyes. A human had faced the first trial of the killing ground and walked through it with calm steps. Arun lifted his staff and placed it once more on the earth. His eyes looked forward, deeper into the wasteland where more traps waited. He did not glance back at the machines. He did not lift his arms in victory. He simply walked forward again, the same way he had walked since the beginning. The machines lay scattered across the cracked soil, their glowing eyes dimmed and their frames twisted. For many warriors, this point of the killing ground was the end. They had run, they had fought, and they had died here. But the human had walked forward with calm steps and left the hunters in silence. Arun did not pause to admire his work. He did not lift his staff as a sign of victory. His calm face showed no pride, only quiet focus. He knew the machines were not the true danger. They were only the test at the gate. The deeper trials waited ahead. From the ships above, the crowd still murmured. Some were filled with disbelief, others with growing interest. The laughter that had filled the halls when the human first stepped into the arena had now turned into whispers of curiosity. Even the council sat straighter in their chairs, their eyes never leaving the small figure moving calmly through the dust. The land before Arun shifted as he walked. Long cracks spread across the surface. The sound of metal grinding against stone echoed from below. The ground seemed alive, breathing in a rhythm older than memory. Arun stopped and placed his staff lightly against the soil. His ears listened, his eyes studied the small motions, and his body stilled like a hunter waiting for the prey to reveal itself. The first trap awoke. The cracked ground split open, and long spikes of stone and metal shot upward like the teeth of some hidden beast. They struck with sudden force, stabbing at the air where moments before he had been standing. Arun had already stepped back, his movement quick yet controlled. The spikes stopped inches from his chest, and the watchers gasped at how close death had come. The ground shook again, and the spikes withdrew. Then more lines split open around him. This time they came from every direction, stabbing in patterns designed to confuse and trap. Warriors before him had tried to dodge wildly, only to find themselves caught between the rising blades. The trap was not meant to test speed but to break the mind with fear. Arun did not run in circles like those before him. His eyes traced the rhythm of the ground, his body shifting in small steps, his staff guiding his balance. When the spikes shot upward, he moved at the last moment, his foot landing on safe earth just as the soil behind him shattered. His calm movements seemed almost slow, but each step carried him away from the blades. The watchers leaned forward, holding their breath. They had never seen a warrior move this way. There was no panic in him, no wasted motion. His calmness was not the absence of fear but the presence of focus. He was not fighting the trap. He was reading it, as if the planet itself had written a code and he was the only one who understood it. The ground gave no mercy. More cracks spread. The spikes came faster, sharper, in patterns that twisted across each other like waves of steel. Arun's eyes never wavered. His staff tapped against the earth before each step, listening for the vibration. With each strike he learned the rhythm, and with each step he moved in harmony with the machine buried below. One spike rose directly beneath him, faster than the rest. The crowd cried out, certain this was the end. But Arun bent his knees and sprang upward. His staff touched the tip of the spike, and his body shifted in the air, landing lightly on the side of another rising blade. He used its momentum to leap again, passing safely to the other side before the earth closed once more. The arena shook with noise, not from the ground but from the watchers. They shouted in disbelief. Some pounded their seats, demanding an explanation. Others began to cheer in spite of themselves. Even the council sat silent, their arguments forgotten for the moment. Still the trap continued. The ground roared, and a final wave of spikes erupted in a circle around him, closing in like the jaws of a beast. Arun turned in place, staff spinning in his hands. When the first spike came within reach, he struck it hard, shifting its path slightly. The second he struck again, and the third after that. The blows were not enough to break the steel, but they were enough to unbalance the rhythm of the machine. The circle faltered. Instead of closing perfectly, the blades clashed against each other, their points colliding with sparks and noise. The trap had broken its own pattern. In that brief gap, Arun stepped through and stood once more on safe ground. The soil grew still. The cracks sealed. The spikes sank back into the earth, and the hum of the ancient machine faded. For the first time in centuries, the first trap of the killing ground had been crossed. Arun stood in silence, staff in hand, his breathing steady. His sleeve was torn again, and dust marked his skin, but his calm eyes looked forward. He had passed through without fear, without panic, without defeat. The crowd erupted with noise. Some shouted that it was impossible. Others whispered that humans were stranger than they had believed. Warriors from proud species clenched their fists, unwilling to admit what their eyes had shown them. Yet the truth was clear. The first trap had fallen before a human who walked with calm steps. In the council chamber, the scaled elder slammed his claw against the table. He insisted that the traps were broken, that age had weakened them. But another council member, a quiet being with silver eyes, spoke in reply. She said that the traps were not weaker. They had been designed to test fear. This human had no fear for them to break. Arun did not look to the sky, did not raise his arms to the ships above. He only placed his staff once more on the earth and walked onward. His pace remained steady, his calm unchanged. The first trap had been passed, and deeper dangers waited ahead. The killing ground had never been walked this way before. The galaxy, for the first time, began to wonder if the human might not only survive but also reach the very heart of the arena. High above the planet, the council chamber glowed with light from the great screens that showed every step of the human in the arena. The chamber was not a simple room. It was a hall of power, filled with voices from many worlds. Each council member carried the weight of their people, and each had seen countless warriors fall on the killing ground. Now, for the first time, they leaned forward in silence. The human had walked past the hunters. He had passed through the first trap of rising blades. He had done what no champion of the past had achieved. His calm steps had carried him deeper into the arena, and still he showed no fear. The scaled elder spoke first. His voice was sharp, cutting across the silence. He declared that the machines must be failing. Their design was ancient, their strength no longer the same. He said it was not the human's courage that had carried him forward but the weakness of old traps. Another council member answered. She was tall, her body made of silver light that shimmered as she spoke. Her voice was calm and measured. She reminded the chamber that those same machines had ended warriors only a cycle before. If they were broken, why had they not spared others? The truth, she said, was not in the machines but in the man who faced them. The chamber filled with murmurs. Some nodded in agreement, others hissed in denial. The council had always believed humans were unremarkable. They were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most advanced. Yet the man below was walking through death with steady steps, and the chamber had no simple answer for it. From the screens they watched him. Arun walked through the dust, his staff touching the ground with every step. His clothes were torn, and sweat marked his brow, yet his eyes remained calm. He did not look up at the sky, as though he cared nothing for the millions who watched him. He walked for himself, not for their applause. One council member, small in size but sharp in thought, leaned forward. He said the human showed a different kind of strength. Warriors of other species had entered the arena with pride, with fury, with weapons meant to crush. Yet pride had failed, fury had blinded, and weapons had broken. The human carried no such burden. He carried patience, and patience was proving stronger than all else. The scaled elder struck the table again. He warned the council not to be fooled by appearances. He said calmness was only a mask and that when the true trials came, the human would fall like the rest. He argued that the crowd must not be allowed to believe humans were more than they were. But even as he spoke, his eyes stayed fixed on the screen. The chamber's leader, an ancient figure who rarely spoke, finally raised her voice. She had seen centuries of warriors rise and fall. Her form was shrouded in shadows, but her eyes gleamed with wisdom. She asked the chamber a simple question. She asked why the galaxy feared the killing ground. Was it the traps? Was it the beasts? Or was it the fear itself that broke warriors before steel ever touched them? The chamber grew silent. They all knew the answer. Fear was the true weapon of the arena. The machines, the traps, the beasts, all of them fed on the panic of their victims. That was why no one had survived. Fear turned warriors into prey before the battle even began. But the human walked without fear. The leader leaned back in her seat and whispered that this was the reason the arena seemed weaker. It was not weaker. It was simply powerless against a man who refused to give it strength. The council chamber filled with debate. Some argued that humans must be studied, their minds examined, their ways copied. Others argued that humans were dangerous, that if they spread across the stars with this strange calmness, they would disrupt the balance of power. A few sat silent, their thoughts hidden, their eyes only on the figure moving calmly across the cracked earth. Meanwhile, the crowd outside the chamber grew restless. Warriors who had once mocked humans now clenched their fists, uneasy with the idea that a newcomer species could succeed where they had failed. Traders whispered of new markets, scholars whispered of new studies, and soldiers whispered of new enemies. The humans' calm steps had already changed the galaxy in ways few could admit aloud. Back in the arena, Arun paused at the edge of a ridge. The land stretched before him, scarred and broken, with dark shapes moving in the distance. He raised his staff, pressing it into the ground once more, listening to the hidden hum below. His eyes narrowed slightly, but his face held the same calm expression. The watchers above leaned forward. What new danger would rise before him now? The council leader raised her hand and silenced the chamber. She spoke once more, her words slow and heavy. She said the human was teaching them something they had forgotten. For too long the galaxy had measured strength by size, by weapons, by fire and fury. But here was proof that strength could be found in quiet steps, in patience, and in calm. Her words spread across the chamber like a quiet storm. Some accepted them with a nod, others with a growl, but none could deny them. The evidence was walking across the arena even as she spoke. The council turned their eyes back to the screen. The human had not yet reached the heart of the arena. More traps and more guardians waited for him. Yet the chamber no longer watched only for his fall. They watched to see how far calmness could truly carry a man in a place built to crush the spirit. The killing ground had become more than a test of courage. It had become a mirror. And in that mirror, the council saw the truth they had long denied. The galaxy feared the arena. The galaxy feared the silence. The galaxy feared the human who walked calmly where no one else dared. The land ahead of Arun grew darker as he walked beyond the ridge. The ground was still cracked and dry, but the air carried a strange heat, as if fire burned somewhere beneath the surface. The watchers above leaned closer to their screens. They knew this part of the arena. Here the shadows came, and with them came fire. Every warrior who had reached this far had failed here. Some had been fast, some had been fierce, but none had endured. The shadows did not strike like blades or claws. They moved with silence, slipping through light and heat, striking when fear grew heavy. Many had tried to face them with weapons of light, but fear had always burned deeper than any fire. Arun walked calmly, his staff resting lightly in his hand. His steps did not quicken, and his eyes did not dart. He had already seen the machines and the spikes, and he knew more trials waited ahead. His breath was steady, and his body carried no sign of hesitation. The first shadow appeared. It rose from the ground like smoke, shaping itself into a figure with burning eyes. Its form shifted, stretching into claws, then folding into wings, then flowing into a spear. It did not stay one shape for long. Its body was fire and darkness together, always moving, always changing. From the ships above, the crowd gasped. They remembered the fear these creatures created. Many strong warriors had fallen to their illusions before even a strike was made. The shadow circled Arun, its fiery eyes watching him closely. It hissed with a sound like wind rushing through broken stone. Another shadow rose behind him, then another to his side. Soon there were 5, each moving in silence, each waiting to strike. Arun turned slowly, staff held loose but ready. His calm face showed no fear, only awareness. The shadows waited for panic, but none came. They flickered, frustrated, their shapes twisting more violently. One rushed forward, a blade of fire in its hand. Arun shifted aside, his staff striking through its form. The shadow burst apart, only to reform again a few steps away. The crowd murmured in surprise. The staff could not destroy them, yet the human had faced the attack without hesitation. Another shadow leapt from behind, claws stretched wide. Arun ducked low, spinning his staff across its burning legs. The shadow stumbled and broke apart, reforming once again further away. Arun did not chase, did not strike wildly. He only moved enough to stay untouched, his calm eyes never losing their focus. The council watched in silence. The scaled elder muttered that these illusions would soon overwhelm him. No warrior had ever outlasted them. The silver-eyed member shook her head. She whispered that the shadows fed on fear, and without fear they were weaker. The others leaned closer, waiting to see which truth would win. The shadows circled faster, their shapes shifting into beasts with fangs, into soldiers with weapons, into storms of fire. They struck again and again, but Arun flowed between them. His staff turned aside each strike, not to destroy, but to redirect. He moved like water between stones, letting their own speed undo them. Then the arena grew brighter. From the cracks in the ground flames erupted, twisting into pillars that burned without smoke. The heat grew heavy, pressing down on him. The shadows danced in the fire, their forms growing stronger, their movements sharper. The watchers leaned back from their screens, the glow of the flames lighting their faces. This was the true danger of the stage. Shadows and fire together. No warrior had survived once the flames rose. Arun stood between the pillars, his staff planted firmly on the ground. The heat pressed against his skin, but his breathing stayed steady. The shadows charged all at once, 5 figures of flame and darkness. Their claws, blades, and fangs came from every side. The crowd cried out, certain the end had come. But Arun did not panic. His staff spun in his hands, striking one shadow aside, turning another into the path of a third. He stepped through the flames, letting the fire lick his sleeve but never consume him. Each movement was precise, each step carried no waste. The shadows clashed against each other, their fiery forms tearing apart in the chaos. One by one they broke and reformed, but each time weaker, each time slower. Arun's calmness denied them their power. They needed fear to grow strong, and fear did not live in his eyes. At last the shadows faltered. Their forms shrank, their fire dimmed, and their voices faded into silence. The flames around the arena burned for a few more breaths, then slowly sank back into the cracks of the earth. The ground grew still once more, leaving only dust and ash. Arun stood alone in the silence. His staff rested against the ground, his body marked with sweat and soot, but his eyes remained calm. He had faced the shadows and the fire, and he had walked through them as he had walked through everything else with patience and with quiet strength. The council chamber erupted in debate. The scaled elder shouted that it was impossible. He demanded that the arena must be broken. But the leader, her shadowed form calm, spoke softly. She said the arena was not broken. The arena was working as it always had. It had tested fear, and fear had failed to move the human. Across the ships, the crowd was no longer silent. Warriors argued loudly, some furious, some amazed. Traders whispered of what humans might become if their strength spread. Scholars wrote quickly, their minds racing with questions. Soldiers clenched their fists, wondering what it would mean to face such people in battle. But no voice was louder than the quiet truth carried by Arun's steps. He had faced the shadows. He had faced the fire. He had not been broken. He walked onward, deeper into the arena, leaving behind the silence of defeated shadows. The galaxy watched, and in every heart a question grew stronger. The air was still heavy with the smell of ash. Arun walked past the broken ground where the shadows had vanished, his steps steady as always. The arena ahead stretched wide and empty, but the watchers knew the silence was not peace. It was the pause before the greatest storm. Every warrior who had reached this place had faced the same end. The arena had one last guardian, a construct built to be the final test. No beast, no shadow, and no trap had ever been feared more. It was said that the guardian was not made only of steel and stone but of the will of the arena itself. The crowd grew quiet as the earth began to tremble. Dust shook from the broken ridges, and cracks spread in lines across the ground. Arun stopped in the center of the plain, his staff pressed lightly against the earth. His calm eyes lifted, not in fear, but in readiness. The final guardian rose. At first it looked like a mountain breaking apart. Huge slabs of stone lifted into the air, held together by glowing chains of energy. Within that frame, great arms of metal and stone unfolded. Its head rose higher than the tallest tower, eyes burning like suns, each step shaking the earth. The guardian was a titan, built to crush all who dared walk this far. The crowd gasped. Many had never seen it before. Most warriors had fallen to shadows and fire. To see the guardian awaken was rare. To see it stand against a single human was something the galaxy had never known. Arun's face did not change. He tightened his grip on the staff and took one slow step forward. The guardian raised its arm, and a blade of stone and metal extended from its hand. It swung with the force of an avalanche. The watchers shouted, certain the human would be crushed. But Arun was already moving. He stepped aside, the blade striking the earth with a crash that sent dust flying high. Arun did not run far. He stayed close, moving with the rhythm of the giant, his staff touching the ground to guide his balance. The guardian roared, a sound of metal grinding and stone breaking. It swung again, and Arun turned with the motion, letting the force pass him by. He struck with his staff, not at the giant's armor, but at the joint where stone and metal connected. The strike was small compared to the size of the Titan, but the watchers saw the guardian stumble, its balance shifted. The council chamber grew louder with debate. The scaled elder shouted that this was foolishness. A stick could not break a mountain. But the leader shook her head. She said the human was not trying to break it with power. He was breaking it with patience. The guardian's attacks came faster. Each swing tore the earth apart, each step shook the ground. Arun weaved between them, his body light, his movements calm. He never rushed, never panicked. His staff struck again and again at the weak points, joints, hinges, and chains of energy that bound the Titan's body together. The crowd leaned forward, watching in disbelief. No warrior had ever lasted this long. Most had been destroyed in the first strike. Yet the human moved as though he had been training for this moment his entire life. The guardian grew angry. Its chest opened, revealing a core of burning light. From it came a beam of energy, scorching the ground where Arun stood. But Arun had already leapt aside, rolling across the cracked soil and rising to his feet. His staff struck the earth once more, guiding him, listening to the vibrations. He was not only fighting the guardian. He was reading it, learning its rhythm as he had learned the machines, the traps, and the shadows. The watchers held their breath as Arun climbed a broken piece of stone that had fallen from the giant's arm. He ran along its surface, closing the distance to the Titan's chest. The guardian swung its blade, but Arun leapt, landing on the arm itself. He balanced lightly, his staff striking at the glowing chains that held the pieces of the guardian together. Sparks flew as one chain cracked, then another. The guardian staggered, its great body shaking. Arun leapt again, landing near the burning core. The heat was fierce, pressing against his skin, but his calm eyes never wavered. With a final strike of his staff, he struck the chain that anchored the core in place. The sound echoed like thunder. The chain shattered, and the guardian roared as its body began to collapse. Stone and metal broke apart, falling in great slabs. Arun leapt free, rolling across the ground as the Titan crashed behind him. Dust and fire filled the sky, covering the plain in smoke. The crowd was silent. The council chamber held no voice. All eyes waited, searching through the dust. Then, slowly, the smoke cleared. Arun stood in the center, his body marked with cuts and dirt, his staff still in hand. His breathing was heavy, but his calm eyes remained the same. The final guardian lay broken. For the first time in all memory, the killing ground had been crossed. The silence stretched long. Then whispers began to spread, whispers that grew louder and louder until the whole arena was filled with noise. Some shouted in awe, others in fear. Some demanded answers, others demanded silence. But none could deny the truth. A human had walked calmly where every warrior had fallen. The council leader rose from her seat. She looked across the chamber at the other members, her eyes steady. She said the galaxy could no longer call humans weak. They had seen what one human could do with patience and calm. The balance of power had shifted. Arun did not look to the sky. He did not raise his arms in victory. He only stood in the silence of the broken arena, his staff planted in the earth. His steps had carried him through every trial, and his calmness had defeated fear itself. The dust of the fallen guardian drifted slowly through the arena. Large stones lay scattered, and the ground carried cracks like scars. Where once stood a Titan feared by every warrior, there was now only rubble. And in the middle of that broken field stood Arun, calm as always, his staff firm in his hand. The crowd that had filled the high seats did not know what to do. For so long they had shouted, judged, and cheered when challengers fell. Now there was no fall. There was only the still figure of a human who had done what no other being in the galaxy had ever managed. At first the watchers were quiet, holding their breath. Then came the rising sound of voices, questions, and disbelief spreading like a wave across the arena. In the council chamber, the leaders of many worlds sat in silence. The scaled elder lowered his head, no longer shouting against the human. The tall figure of the council leader stood, her robe swaying with the movement. Her eyes were calm, though inside she knew what this moment meant. The balance of power had changed. The killing ground had been more than a trial. It had been a symbol of fear. That symbol was now broken by one who had not been expected to survive even the first step. Arun raised his staff and began to walk. Each step was steady, slow, without pride or celebration. He was not walking to claim victory. He was walking because that was what he had always done. Step after step, through fire, shadow, storm, and finally stone. Now he walked toward the great gate at the far end of the arena. The gate opened with a groan of ancient metal. The sound echoed through the chamber and across the watching crowds. No warrior had ever reached that gate alive. To see it open was to see history itself change. Beyond the gate lay the path that none had touched, the path out of the killing ground. When Arun stepped through, the crowd rose to their feet. Some shouted in awe, some in anger, some in fear. The voices clashed together, a storm of sound that carried into the council hall. Many leaders argued, saying that the human must be taken and studied, that no one could be allowed to carry such power freely. Others argued that he must be honored, for he had broken the curse of the arena. The council leader raised her hand, and the noise slowly faded. She declared that what they had witnessed was not only victory but proof. Proof that humans held strength the galaxy had overlooked. Outside the arena, Arun was met with silence. No guards moved to stop him. No machines rose to strike him down. The path stretched open, lit by the fading glow of the sky. He looked once over his shoulder at the broken field behind him. The air still carried smoke, and the stones still smoldered. For countless ages, warriors had feared that ground. Now it was only a place where a man had walked calmly. Arun's thoughts were quiet. He had not come to prove anything. He had not come to claim power. He had walked because walking forward was what he understood. Fear had tried to stop him, but he had not listened. Fire had tried to burn him, but he had stepped through. Shadows had tried to break his mind, but he had held steady. Machines, storms, and titans had risen, yet still he had kept walking. To him, it had been a path of steps. To the galaxy, it was something greater. The people of many worlds began to speak his name. Some said he was chosen by fate. Others said he carried secrets that must be learned. Some even feared he was the beginning of a change that could not be stopped. Stories spread faster than light. In markets, in temples, in halls of power, beings spoke of the human who had crossed the ground where every warrior had fallen. Yet Arun himself did not seek that fame. When he reached the first plane beyond the arena, he sat down on a stone and rested his staff beside him. The wind moved softly, carrying the smell of dust and smoke. He breathed slowly, feeling the ground beneath his hands. To him, the journey was finished. But the galaxy would not let it rest. In the days that followed, envoys and soldiers came. Some wanted to meet him with honor. Some wanted to test him with new trials. Some wanted to take him away in chains. Yet whenever they arrived, they found the same man sitting calmly, speaking with simple words, or sometimes not speaking at all. He answered no challenge with anger. He showed no pride in victory. He remained steady, and that steadiness unsettled them even more than power could have. The council called for him to stand before them. When he entered the hall, the leaders looked at him with a mix of fear and respect. The council leader asked why he had walked into the killing ground, knowing no one had survived before. Arun's reply was simple. He said he had walked because there was a path. He said he had faced what was before him because to stop walking would be to give up. His answer spread like fire across the stars. Warriors who had once believed strength was only power began to wonder if it was also patience. Leaders who had thought fear was unbreakable began to doubt it. Races who had dismissed humans as weak began to see them in a new light. The killing ground, once a place of terror, became a place of pilgrimage. Not all who walked it survived, but many tried, inspired by the human who had gone before them. Yet none ever matched his calm steps, his steady pace, his quiet strength. For it was not only his body that had carried him through. It was his spirit, unshaken by fear. Years later, when stories of Arun filled every corner of the galaxy, some asked if he had been more than human. But those who had seen him closely knew the truth. He had been only a man, with simple eyes and steady steps. That was what made him greater than any legend. For if he could do it, then perhaps others could too.